Let me just start first by saying thank you for all of you who are coming today. For those who are joining this webinar, welcome to the Washington State Microenterprise Association 2025-2026 grant opportunities for the WSMA statewide and urban grant programs information session. Thank you, everyone. We're just going to go through a few of these slides. We'll be able to answer any questions at the end, but we'll pause periodically just to make sure we're being clear. All right, I did this intro. Welcome. Go to the next slide. So today, we're going to be talking about two grant programs at the same time. They're different pools of funding, but they're almost identical. And we're going to be talking about the difference of both of them during this webinar. But just understand before we go any further, if anyone is in this webinar that is a business, meaning you're not a nonprofit, then we would encourage you to exit off because these funds are only for nonprofit organizations. So I want to make sure that that's really clear. Secondly, there are two grant programs, as I mentioned. You can only apply for one or the other, not both. And you'll learn more about this as we go ahead. But so let's go ahead. We're going to be talking about the budget. We'll be looking at the project information and the questions, the review process, and our expectations of all of you in this process. And then we'll handle questions at the end. Okay, let's move forward. Similar to our program in the past, this purpose is really to ensure that Washington-based businesses are being supported and through business training, technical assistance, and financing. And we are focusing on the ESOs, or the entrepreneur support organizations in our network, and they include also CDFIs, or community development financial institutions, folks from the Small Business Resiliency Network, and other organizations, including chambers. We are highlighting primary or priority sectors, and those are small-scale manufacturing, those in the creative economy, agriculture and food waste economy, clean tech, childcare, home building construction, life sciences, maritime trades, and tourism. And those are the primary sectors for the statewide grant. Next slide.
And just calling out the header that there are 16 grants to be awarded at $10,000 each for the statewide grant funding pool.
Great, thank you for that. Now the urban grant is different. These are focused on nonprofits that are serving businesses in urban communities, specifically in these three sectors: small-scale manufacturing, childcare, and home building. And again, these are also $10,000 grants, and there are 8 of them. So just to be clear, if you're an urban-based nonprofit, but you don't have anything to do with small-scale manufacturing or childcare or home building or construction, you're going to apply for a statewide grant because there are statewide grants available for urban-based enterprises. Only those nonprofits serving businesses in urban centers in these 3 sectors would you apply for the urban grant.
They're very similar, like the statewide, the purpose and the focus is still applicable to the urban grant overview. So it's the distinction is urban in those 3 industries, but everything else stays true.
So the next slide, we're just going to go through these now pretty straightforwardly.
We did get a question about so our specific nonprofit can only apply once. And yes, you can only apply for either a statewide or an urban grant. The first question on the application, which will show, is you select which one you're applying for. It doesn't mean that the follow-up question is, if you don't assist businesses in the priority industries, we aren't eligible. No, the statewide is open to all industries, and the urban, even though it's just those 3 industries, you would still apply to the statewide. So it's not that you're ineligible or that we're excluding urban ESOs. It's just directing to a different pool of grant funding So you're not, and even though we said those are primary industries for the statewide, if you serve an industry outside of that, it doesn't mean that you're ineligible.
There's another question. So our specific nonprofit can only apply once, and that's correct, either for statewide or for urban. And you answered that question really well. Okay. All right. So just for all of you, normally WSMA has been funding a larger pool of funding in the past. We had our funding cut, and that's why these are so small and there are so few of them. So I just appreciate your patience. We're trying to also make this process much easier than the past. We're trying to make a shorter application and facilitate your kind of quick ability to apply and our quick ability to review. So just understand we're trying to do our best here, but want to make sure it's at least clear to you in this information session. A couple of very quick highlights in this program. We're looking at your support of very, very small businesses. So those are those companies with 5 or fewer employees and with financing needs of under 50,000. Another unique aspect of this particular grant round is that if you apply for the 10,000, you must be able, from your organizational capacity, be able to provide comprehensive business training, technical assistance, or financing support to at least 35 businesses during the grant period. So that would be roughly between February and mid-June. So if your organization is too small or you don't have the capacity to do a training program or technical assistance to 35 unduplicated businesses, then we would encourage you to apply in a future round. But if this is something you can do and you think you can apply your services to that many entrepreneurs that are unique, then apply. And I'm going to go really quickly through these. Entrepreneur support organizations are defined in the webinar. I'm sorry, in the grant guidelines. Also, I wanted to highlight embedded ESOs. So if, sometimes there are very large organizations that do a lot of things from housing to food assistance, and then they have a division for microenterprise training and technical assistance. That's considered an embedded ESO or entrepreneur support organization. So anything that you do when you're applying as an embedded ESO, your budget, your allocations, all your decisions around the budget will be based on the budget for that embedded ESO service. And we can answer questions further about that if there are any at the end. And emerging ESOs are just those that are just getting started. In order to be successful in this grant program, you have to have at least 2 years of providing business training, technical assistance, or financing to small businesses. If you're starting up, you've never done it before, you likely won't meet that threshold that we're asking of organization in this round. Next slide. Our hope is that you are not trying to do everything on your own, that you know who your EDC or Economic Development Association is, you know who other nonprofits are in your area doing similar work, that you're collaborating with them. We want to also just make sure you're clear, if you're an urban grantee or applicant, that you're clear about what those communities are in these particular counties: Benton, Clark, King, Kitsap, Pierce, Snohomish, Spokane, Thurston, and Whatcom. And then rural and urban, they're basically defined in the guidelines, but we're not as concerned about them for the statewide grant. Anything you would like to add, Catherine?
I think that answers the question of what is considered urban. This is the definition of of what is considered urban. And there was also a question, statewide means it applies to both urban and rural areas, and the answer is yes.
Okay, so you need to have a 501c3 or be eligible, a similar nonprofit like chambers or C6s. They're eligible. Some port districts, economic development districts. Unfortunately, no academic institutions are allowed in this grant round. you need to have at least applied to be a part of the Evergreen BizLink as a resource partner. And I've already covered the 2 years of experience. Another key aspect of your capacity is being able to track what you're doing, understand how to measure impact on what you're doing, how to gauge the communities that you're serving, and be able to capture the stories of the value of your work. And so that's part of the track record of being able to do this work in the past and being able to do that in this grant round. Next slide.
So for the questions, there is a question that to just confirm, is it a $10,000 grant to support 35 businesses?
Yes.
And yes, the answer is at least 35 unduplicated businesses. And it's at least 35. And so you'll be up against organizations that can do 35 or more. And the way Lisa broke it down is that it's on average over the 3-month period of serving about 10 businesses.
And I guess the other part of what we're trying to say is that we have seen in the past nonprofit organizations applying to provide training programs for multiple sessions that relate to each other, and providing technical assistance and helping them access financing. But what we're saying is not just one unduplicate. A business may receive multiple services. We're just asking you to count that entrepreneur just one time. So we're not thinking about 35 hours for that 10,000. We're asking you to serve a number of services to businesses to at least 35 unduplicated. Okay. All right.
And then just to follow up with the and we'll get more into this when we get to the economic impact outcomes. But a question is, will the application require a contact list for the 35 unique micro businesses? And we do not ask for specific contact lists for all of them. We do ask for the number that you'll be reporting on in your final report. And we will ask if there's any businesses that you would highlight these success stories that we could potentially use and identify their name, not to steal the ESO's thunder of all the work that you're doing, but just to help show and demonstrate how these services are helping this our economy. Okay.
Okay, so required use of funds. We're unique. We're not like every other nonprofit. Our focus is to really make sure you all have the quality resources to provide technical assistance, training, and support for financing to these small businesses. So that's what these are for. So if you're wanting to do a cultural event or support people doing something other than business, I would encourage you to apply for other grants. This is specifically for business training, and we see that in 2 ways. One is a series of workshops that relate to each other in a cohort. That's how we consider training. And you can also have training in a small workshop or a webinar. That's fine. A one-off example, that's also considering it training. But when you see the application, you'll see that there's a way to identify the distinction between a training series and a webinar. So training is one. Secondly is technical assistance. And that could be providing cash flow projections. It could be doing one-on-one technical support for a business needing financing or understanding their market. So that's a technical assistance unique to businesses. And then the last part, excuse me, is really the support that businesses need in accessing financing. And some of them, you'll just help them get their books together. And that's support, because if they can't produce a financial statement, it's going to be harder to get a loan. So the technical assistance can be in helping them helping them get ready for a loan. It could also be saying, hey, here's a microlender, here's a CDFI, go and apply, and helping them get ready for that application. We are going to want to better understand your success in doing that piece. And we've changed a couple of questions, and we'll get into that later. Okay, just so we're all clear, based on our funding, only staff cost, only wages can be included in your costs that you provide on your budget. So no benefits, no FICA withholding, just wages only. So think about that when you're filling out your budget. Also, rent and utilities are fine. If a staff has to travel to a remote community and do a training, that mileage is fine. If you need to hire a consultant to do a high-level training for, let's say, a tech company or a manufacturer, that consultant fee is eligible. They just need to be reasonable costs. Again, the training costs, like if you have a facility and you're holding that facility for 6 weeks and each week you have to pay for that, that's eligible. Any outreach you do to bring in those businesses to come to your event, that outreach and education materials, including translation and interpretive services, are eligible activities. And then, just your efforts in helping keep these businesses in operation from a technical assistance standpoint are eligible. Next slide. Okay, I'm going to just lightly touch on this. No equipment. If you're thinking about equipment, apply for a different grant because that won't be eligible here. And also, we have been admonished and really clear that none of these funds can go directly to entrepreneurs, either in loans or grants, stipends, or helping them with fees, with permits. None of those are eligible under this grant. And then just personnel costs, no overtime, all of those employee costs that I mentioned before, just keep it to staff wages. And then these funds are not intended to cover food. So we encourage you, if you need to get other funding, a sponsor or something to cover the food costs, and apply these funds just to programming. Would you add anything here, Catherine?
Yeah, I just think that crosses over into this next slide, how you can combine other sources of funding and use the WSMA grant to cover the eligible business service expenses. And then if you get a sponsor or have another source of funding and you want to offer an incentive or a stipend or a membership to the chamber, local chamber, we have had grantees charge a small registration fee to cover the cost of refreshments at an event. We also found that could help incentivize businesses to attend because they're invested and not just no show at a free event. So that is allowed.
Yeah, and I also just want to say that it may be that you have funding from a source to provide business training and technical assistance in X community. But you also want to apply to WSMA to reach new businesses in a community nearby. It's okay to apply our funds to that new community. It has to be very clear in your application how the funds from WSMA are complementing, but not duplicating the programming that you have other funds to cover your services with. So I just want to make sure that that is really clear. If you're just, if you've got a program, you're getting funding and you're adding money for WSMA, but it's on top of what you currently are doing and you don't have any extra costs, then it will likely rate very high in our review process. Okay. All right. So eligibility requirements are going to be pretty critical. We want you to be able to have, we want you to show that you have trusted relationships in the community that you're serving. So if you're trying to reach a new group, you don't have any connections, you don't have any relationships with them, it's going to be harder. Many of you already do have those relationships. We want you to be able to demonstrate in your application that you have done this before. You have 2 years experiences, you have the systems to track your work, and that you have an experience of working closely with other partners who do similar work. And those can be found on Evergreen BizLink. a key part of this work is your relationships and your understanding of that whole financing part of a business's life. And so you showing you have connections with local lenders or CDFIs or grant programs is going to be valuable in your application process. Okay, just touching really quickly on the timeline. We released the grant last week. The portal opened on Friday. Today, we're having our information session. Tomorrow, Catherine's going to be going through the portal walkthrough so you understand how to open up your profile on that platform and how to really run through and get your questions asked, questions answered. And then this grant is due on January 7th. So we've given you about a month to put together a very kind of a brief application so that we can review and get your answers to the funding decisions by the end of January. So you'll all know yay or nay by January 30th whether your proposal was accepted and awarded. Between that time that you sign your contract with WSMA and June 16th, you're going to be doing the work. And then between April and May, we're going to be reaching out to do a mid-grant review. These have been incredibly rewarding for us and grantees in the past. Sometimes partners or grantees run into a snag and we can help problem solve. But you want to make sure that all the grants, all the funding is spent before the end of, before June 16th, and your report is in by June 16th. So project is completed, funds are expended, and the report is due on June 16th. Okay, just like you don't know, this is a short period. There's only roughly about 3 months, but we have confidence in you based on what we've seen in the past that you are all going to be able to submit good applications and get the work done in this period. Because it's so short, these are small amounts of money, we're going to be getting the 80% of the grant out right away, close after we have our signed contract. And then once the report is in and we've approved it, the 20% will be in your bank account by June 30th. So that's our commitment to all of you. Yes, so this application is, we've helped to provide a checklist that you can just go over. We provided this both in PDF and in Word, so you can put it in a Google Doc so others can work on it at the same time. The most important thing is to get onto the portal and get your account. And as you add information that's complete, make sure you save. So it's just really important so that you don't have to duplicate your work. You want to add anything here, Catherine?
So this is just a snapshot of the overview of the 6 tabs of the application. First tab pulls from the portal your organization profile and your user profile. So if any of that contact information, including the legislative districts and the congressional districts, if you need to change any of that, that's appearing on the first tab of the application, you would go to your profiles. And I'll demo that and walk through it tomorrow at the portal walkthrough, and we'll be posting the recording of that. And we're about to go into the application questions. On the completed fund request form, it's a similar form as we've used in previous cycles. Just reiterating to please upload Excel, not a PDF or numbers. I can't open numbers, so if just upload Excel, please.
There are, I just want to highlight a few of these. So you only are going to apply for one or the other. If you predominantly serve urban-based businesses and you provide childcare support, training, business technical assistance, or to small-scale manufacturers or to builders, then apply for the urban grant. And if you work with any other business around the state, both in urban and rural settings and statewide, then apply for the statewide. We do have priority areas there, but this is intended to serve all businesses.
And this is the classic example of clicking Save Draft, because depending what you answer to question number one, the corresponding questions will appear. So, if step one is answer statewide or urban, and then hit Save Draft so that the right questions will show up.
All right. And so when you tell us about your organization, be specific. This is a time to be very clear about what your agency does and your experience articulating that. And then we want you to be pretty specific about your training program, whether it's a series or it's a cohort, a series using a cohort, or if it's a one-off webinar or workshop, what kind of technical assistance, and if your support with businesses will include financing or microlending. And we have put in a table, and Catherine's going to cover that, where you can really make it's easier for you to identify what you're going to be doing, so that it'll be easier for you to write that in the application, easy for us to get that into your scope of work so we can contract faster.
Oh, I was just going to call out that there's two question 5. This is one of the urban application and the statewide application are very similar. This is an example where they're slightly different. So statewide has these industries asking for you to select if you serve any of those, and then if so, how many years. But if you don't, if your businesses that you serve aren't in any of those industries, that's okay. You don't need to select. You would select none of the above, and then how many years of experience, we just put 0 because it's not applicable. And then urban, it is those 3 industries and how many years of experience. Because if you're not serving one of those 3 industries, switch over to statewide.
Okay. Statewide only?
This is a statewide only question because we're asking if you're predominantly serve rural or urban or statewide. And if you're applying for an urban grant, you don't need this question because it's all urban. So going forward, like number 7 is actually number 7 for statewide, but urban does have one less question, and you're not asked if you're serving rural, urban, or statewide.
Thank you. And the reason why we're asking you to include the counties where you're going to be providing services is because we have people from these communities reaching out and saying, so who in my community provides these services? Where have these nonprofits offered their training and technical assistance? And so if, for example, you're a nonprofit that's serving Benton and Franklin counties, then we want you to put those in there. The legislature both awarded and withdrew funding from these programs, and we want them to know your story. So that's one of the most important reasons for being specific about where you're dedicating your services. Okay. These are pretty self-explanatory. No benefit, no difficulty if you're not a person of color. We just want to be able to make sure that we are reaching and serving communities of color, people with disabilities, rural folks, and a broad base community with these funds. Yeah, this abstract is really important. I know it's hard. It takes discipline. It's hard for me, but this will really help us be able to identify and understand what you're doing in a very streamlined way. So if you need help with that, we can help you, but it's important to get that abstract clear in your proposal. Yeah, and just so you know that we will be extracting what you say in your grant application and putting it into the scope of work so that we're all clear about what your intention is with these funds and your activities over the grant period. And it's hard to know exactly what you're going to do. It's hard to know how many you're going to reach. It's hard to know exactly where or what topics you're going to be planning for. But what we have known and seen is that your organizations have done this before. You have a sense of what's really attractive right now. You have a sense of what businesses need. You have the skills and the tools and the trainers to do the work. So we're asking you to be as specific as you can with your intention. And it may be that you do at least 35 or 50, whatever numbers of businesses, but those businesses are receiving multiple services like training and technical assistance and financing. Tell us about it. Make sure it's clear. All right.
And whatever you put in your the table, those numbers need to match for those categories the economic impact outcomes, which will make sense after we go through the different sections. But I'm going to switch over to the PDF
Beautiful.
To illustrate a sample table. So this is an example of one of each type. And we're not saying that your grant to be competitive needs to have every single, it's just an example of to walk through some sample language and the nuances between the different categories. And these are the columns in the table, in the portal that we're asking for. And by collecting this information, our hopes is that it will be easier to plug this into a contract because we will have all of the information that we need. So the business service type is a drop down where you select one of the four options, the number of sessions, total duration, and the number of businesses served. Those are number fields. So if you put something else, like you spell it out, FOUR, and try to save, it's just not gonna, you'll see in the portal that the value won't stick. So it's set for a number. The in-person, virtual, or both is also a drop down. The columns, location, anticipated collaborators, and description of work are multi-line text cell. And it's a little clunky in the portal because it's set pretty small, but if you hover your cursor on the bottom right corner of that cell, there becomes like three diagonal lines and your cursor turns into a diagonal arrow. And you can expand that cell to be as large as you need for your text so you can view it more easily. The training workshop in this sample has 4 sessions and a total of 40 businesses served. In the description, it says it will focus on 10 entrepreneurs each session. So for workshops, which are the one-offs, you don't need to attend that whole series. Your training workshops might be a series of workshops, but like you don't need to go to one to get to the other, an accumulation and a graduation event. So it's 4 times 10 equals the number of businesses served. It's not unduplicated. It's training series. We have 8 sessions with 10 businesses served. And in the description, they're saying that they're going to provide business programming for 10 business owners. Since this is a training series, a cohort, it's not 8 times 10 for 80. It is the 10 businesses going through a training series that has 8 sessions. So that's kind of the nuance. And when we say that these numbers need to match the economic impact outcomes, these are the numbers that we'll be looking for. Does the SOW summary match what's reported in the outcomes? So we would expect to see 10 businesses in the training series and 40 businesses entered in the workshop section. Technical assistance. This is another example of the access to financing is through the technical assistance sessions. We will assist 6 businesses in applying for and securing loans. So you have the technical assistance deliverable, but we're highlighting that part of the technical assistance is dedicated to financing support. So it might feel a little duplicative, but we're trying to parse that out because that's one of the focuses of this grant program. And location, the more information you provide us, it's very helpful. County's great, but when we're looking at districts and trying to figure out what businesses are being served and what areas, county level only goes so far. So the more that you could provide, the better. And even if it's virtual, if you have an idea of where those businesses will be coming from, because we're really trying to understand where the efforts are going towards. So we're still asking for a location, even if they're attending virtual, like where are these businesses based from? And then anticipated collaborators and partners, the more specific you can be, like we understand you might not have it figured, like you might not know if your partner's committed until you're awarded, but if you could maybe not just write local chamber, but actually put the name of your local chamber, that's also helpful.
Thank you, Catherine. And I just want to say this looks complicated. Hopefully this table will make it easier. But what we want to say is that this is not coming out of the blue. There have been so many studies done over time with multiple communities in the informal economy and in the traditional economy, that these kinds of specific training and technical assistance support services actually make a difference in the business's capacity to be successful, to start smart, and to be able to move forward. So that's the main reason why this is so technical, and we appreciate your patience here. All right. So I would say anything. I think the narrative is pretty clear. We hope that you understand the value of having very clear and measurable impacts. Some of them are numeric, number of businesses served, jobs created, but we also want to know your other kinds of measurables like quality of life or wealth creation or greater confidence. So if you measure success differently, we want you to include those. They have been fabulous in the past. So just to make sure we understand that one. Go to the next. Oh yeah, and so just tracking your progress, make sure you understand, if you need help with platforms or software, just make sure you're tracking in an effective way. Some people, pen and paper will work. And again, you want to be specific. You want to make sure you're able to measure what you're doing so it's understandable to like a fifth grader. Make sure your goals are achievable. If you're saying you're going to do 80 businesses unduplicated, that may not be doable. Relevant. So if it's not business related, if it's not specific to helping a business be successful, it's probably not relevant. And make sure you can get it accomplished in the time frame. Okay. We have gone to a lot of detail in the past. It's very specific in the checklist. We are glad to meet with you one-on-one if you need additional help, but jobs created are very, from the Department of Commerce, very clear. If you have an entrepreneur who's been doing business, but not formal, they don't have a license, but they go through your program, they learn about business, they become licensed, they have just created a business and they've created a job. So you could count them as both. And if a business is successful and they are able to not go out of business, they've saved a job, that's a job saved. If a company goes through your program and they are successful in marketing better and they're reaching more entrepreneurs and they increase their sales, that's a business expanded. And again, unduplicated means you reach this business, you're going to count this business once, even though that business may have gotten training and technical assistance and support. Okay. I think we can move through this one. I just covered this. Make sure you're specific on the sessions you're providing, your intention. If you say your intention has a training program for 8 sessions and you only do 6, no problem. There's not going to be a ding. There's not going to be a demerit, nothing. These are your best goals you can come up with at this time. Yeah, and just keep track of the number of hours, the number of businesses you provide technical assistance with, and the type of technical assistance. And then with regard to financing, did you support a business by a referral? And how many referrals were there? And did that entrepreneur apply for a grant or a loan? They're going to be in contact with you. Mark that. If 6 businesses applied for a loan, but only 2 were awarded, then you're going to indicate that on that platform. And then the total amount funded. So it's pretty explanatory. Once you get in there, it'll be clear to you. Okay.
And this is one area that we did change slightly this cycle is we're asking for the number of businesses awarded loans and grants that you know of, as opposed to how many loans and grants were awarded, because we wanted to be able to know how many businesses, and we last statewide and urban ESOs helped businesses secure $2.7 million in access to financing. But we couldn't say this is how many businesses that was. We only knew how many loans and grants were awarded, which might be pretty one-to-one. But so instead of asking how many loans and grants were awarded, we're asking how many businesses were awarded loans and grants.
Okay, so the review process is pretty straightforward. We're going to assess for a complete list. We want to make sure that we get these notifications out to you by January 30th. We're going to try to get it sooner than that. But please, please get your applications in early. Don't try to get the application in at 5 o'clock at the end of the day, because we won't be able to help you, and it will be hard. So get it in soon. If there's a problem with it, we're going to reach out with questions. But each one is independently evaluated, and we wish you the greatest success.
And Lisa brings up a good point to get it in early, but I would also just expand to not risk like the 458, 459 trying to submit, because there is some validation logic on certain questions, which I'll demo tomorrow in the portal walkthrough. But if you exceed a word count, I just wouldn't, if you try to hit submit and then you get an error, please fix this. And then it's just a little risky if you push it to 458. Give yourself at least 5 minutes to make sure that submission goes through. And you'll know if it goes through because you'll receive an email saying that you successfully submitted, and you'll get a attached PDF of your submitted application.
So reduce the stress on you. Okay, so we will go through all of this with you if you are awarded, but you'll have a contract. There'll be a scope of work. We'll need to have data from you in order to get funding your way. We'll go through all of that. Details here are all in the application. Let's keep going. These are all clear. These are all in the guidelines. Let's go, keep going. Okay. So if we only support 2 out of 3 primary industries, should we apply for the urban or the state? If those are those industries outlined in the urban setting and you're serving urban businesses, go for urban. But you make the choice. If you have any questions, you can let us know. We can talk with you. All right. I would say, if we don't assist businesses in the priority industries, are we eligible? Yes. All businesses are eligible under the statewide grant. Can we only assist already set up microenterprises, or can we assist people looking to start a business? Absolutely. Startups are okay. Mature businesses are okay. If we're doing a training series, do we have to ask registrants if they're microenterprises to ensure we're meeting the threshold? Normally we ask for business name, so we just wanted to make sure. We would encourage you to have an application process for any business, and you can include demographic information. If they don't want to answer it, it's okay, but get the information you need so it's easy to report on. I hope that made sense. Would river restoration businesses qualify as construction companies for purposes of this urban grant? Dang, that's a good question. We're going to look that up, but it makes sense to me. We will answer that in the FAQ. Is there a tracking package to report back? Is there a tracking package to report back if accepted? Is there I don't understand that question.
Referring to like the final report and reporting on the economic impact outcomes.
Yeah, there is a template that you will be sent in order for you to answer those questions. Great. By 35 unduplicated businesses, could this be for multiple home care cooperatives as an example? We just can't service the same businesses more than once. I'm going to answer that in the FAQs just because I want to be clear and make sure we're answering that correctly. Do applicants have to serve an entire state for statewide grant? No. If you're a statewide organization and you're only serving a portion of the state, that is totally fine. You can definitely serve 1 or 2 counties. So it's a total of 35 unduplicated businesses for the whole program? Yes. Does the ineligibility of food also include travel food per diem for staff? That's a good question. And we have a much clearer answer to that in the FAQs, and we will make sure those are included there. So if we have a partially funded program, but it does not fully cover costs, can we apply these funds? If the program you have funding for is complete and it's being applied to a certain group of individuals, and you have funding for that, then you cannot apply these funds to that program. If you're reaching a new group of people in a new region or providing additional services not covered by your grant, then they're eligible. And we can work with you offline and make that clear in the FAQs. Any idea how many applicants you anticipate receiving? Also, what is the likelihood of any given community receiving 2 grants in one category submitted by or awarded to different organizations? So first question, we don't know how many applicants. We never know how many, but we do know that the reviewers make sure that we have a good spread around the state. And if you think you might have a partner in your region applying, talk with them and see if there's any way you can collaborate. So I can't say no, the reviewers won't approve 2 in the same area, but they do want good geographic reach. Hope that answers your question. Okay, just to be clear, can we only apply for statewide or urban? Not both, that's right. Only one application. If we anticipate some of the businesses served by the project work are within an urban target, but not all, should we apply for statewide? Yes. If you're serving a community that's both urban and statewide, then it would be likely better for you to apply for statewide. Are there only certain counties eligible? Actually, no. All counties in Washington state are eligible under the statewide grant. In regards to the question related to organizations led by BIPOC person, could we say yes to the question if the person providing the TA is a person of color? This is really our intention is to understand about the director of the organization, whether it's led by either the director or the board of directors. We're assuming that you have BIPOC consultants and staff. Is the example showing total of 86 businesses served? I don't know about that question.
I think it's referring to the SOW summary table where we had 40 and there were some duplicates.
Yeah, so we can answer that offline or we can clarify that later.
Yeah, because I think that example doesn't add up to 86. It'd be less than 86, but we'll follow up.
When will awardees have contracts in hand? We don't know, but my hope is in that early part of February with our process, no later than the end of February. Is cottage-type businesses that want to grow from home base to location considered small-scale manufacturing? Depends on the business. Are they making widgets? Are they making food? Manufacturing can be in a lot of different ways, and we'll clarify that in scope of work. But yes, if they're going from home-based in their garage making these products in a manufacturing and they want to go into a larger space, absolutely, yes. Next week begins a holiday. Can we get a recording by Friday? We will do our best. As a Chamber of Commerce and support tourism throughout the year and sponsor events, is this a grant we can apply for? As a chamber, you're supporting tourism-based businesses throughout the year. I think I'm understanding you. Can you apply for these funds for tourist-based businesses? If that's what you're asking, the answer is yes. Can you apply these funds for the whole year? No. all these funds need to be spent on businesses in the state or in urban areas specifically by June 16th. So if we have previous funding that supports the program we have, yet it has been expended or expired, can this funding be used on previous businesses served, or must they be new businesses? Excellent question, Shelley. If you're helping these small companies that grow to a new stage, if you are providing new training programs to these businesses and new businesses, then they're eligible. I hope that answers your question. I want to say thank you. We appreciate your time today. I know it felt like a fire hose. We applaud all of you and your work. We're excited to see your applications. If you have questions, just send us an email. We'll get this out as soon as we possibly can. You're all rock stars. Have a great afternoon.